All right. Now I think I've got all the technical bugs worked out. So welcome to the What Works Marketing webinar series. So my name is Elizabeth King. For those of you I have not met, I have a public relations and marketing firm. And this came about because of the questions I was getting. So a lot of my clients or the people that I talk to are doing some type of marketing, but they want to do better. They're kind of confused about all of the different options that are available, and they're not certain what tactics are going to work for their business. And a lot of people just don't even know where to start. You know, other companies I talk to, they are doing some marketing, but maybe they're not seeing the ROI that they want. They're not seeing either the foot traffic to their store, they're not seeing the results online. And they're really afraid that they're wasting time and money on ineffective marketing, and nobody wants to do that. Other people I talk to, they have a really good message, but maybe it's being handled by too many people. And so we've got the secretary sending out the newsletter, and you've got someone else handling social media, and there's just so many people involved that the message is somehow getting diluted and it's not as effective as it could be. You all relate to any of those? Well, that's kind of where this came from. So I was really concerned that people didn't know what tactics were really working. And there's so many new things. A lot of us are familiar with traditional marketing. And so we know we should probably be doing some social media, but you know, there's so many new things. It's how do you use LinkedIn better? How do you know, what are online reviews for? Do I really need to be doing video? These types of questions are coming up. And so that's what this series is all about. I partner with so many experts in the marketing industry for different tactics and different things. I really love to work on marketing strategy, and I like branding and helping companies understand who they are and how to talk to, you know, their ideal customers and what tactics are going to work best. But I'm not a web designer, and I'm not a photographer, and I'm not a LinkedIn guru. And so when I need some of these things, I reach out to other marketing experts to just collaborate and create the best team for my clients. And so that's where this series comes in. I have reached out to some of the people that I highly respect in the industry to share with you what are these tactics that are really working right now and what do you need to know. And so with that being said, today, if I can get this to work. There it goes. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about marketing strategy versus tactics, because since I have you here today, I want to be able to tell you, you know, so often you think, oh, I'm doing marketing, and you're just thinking about the tactics. But there's so many things that go into a full-scale marketing strategy. And I want to give you some context on what you need to think about when you're doing your strategy. And then I'm going to turn it over to Iris, and she is going to talk about what moves a profile from dormant to magnetic, you know, how a company page and a personal page are different and how you need to use them. And then we're going to talk about your LinkedIn score or your SSI score, because it's really important to understand your marketing success on LinkedIn. And then we're going to open it up for Q&A at the end. So let's talk a little bit now about marketing strategy. So I get really fired up talking about strategy and marketing and how to really create a good strategy for your business. But so much of it depends on, you know, your company identity and who you are. And a lot of times that one gets overlooked. We just want to jump into the sexy part, and we want to create websites and social media posts and do all these things, but we don't really think about your company identity and who you are and what are your key messages and what are you all about? Because who you are is going to attract your ideal customers. And then I like to make sure that we really understand who your ideal customers are. What, you know, not only their demographics, but their psychographics. So, you know, what are their values? What do they believe in? You know, what's their family like? What are they doing when they're not working? You know, where are they getting their information? and really creating a profile for your customers. And then you need to think about goal setting. So what are your business goals? What are you really trying to accomplish from your business? And then breaking that down into smaller business or marketing goals, so you can really focus some time and effort on making change in a certain area. You don't have to do everything at once. You know, it's that how do you eat an elephant? You take one bite at a time. And so that's kind of how a marketing strategy works for your business. We're going to set marketing goals and set time frames in ways that we're going to measure the success of these different tactics. And then we're going to figure out, okay, so what is our goal? We're going to check, we want to achieve X, Y, and Z. Well, to do that, we need to use social media. We need to use some video. We need to use LinkedIn. And so we're going to figure out what tactics we're going to use in that strategy to achieve that marketing goal. And then you've got the fun part. Then you're implementing and you're actually doing the work and putting it out there. But where I find a lot of people miss is that evaluation piece at the end. You know, they don't take the time to say, hey, this was really effective. You know, this was a great tactic and I don't need to change anything. But maybe here I'm not quite, you know, meeting my audience, or maybe I need to tweak it. Or maybe it just didn't work at all. I mean, I wish I could tell you that communications was an exact science, but there's a lot of trial and error that goes into creating the right marketing strategy for your business. And so with all that being said, let's talk about LinkedIn and all the fun stuff. Let's get to the sexy part of the presentation. I just wanted to make sure that you had a real overview of everything that goes into creating your marketing strategy, because it's so much more than just figuring out what tactics you want to use and then just throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks. All right, well, I am super excited to introduce Iris Culp to you today. So I'm going to read her bio. Iris Culp is the principal at IC Growth, a marketing and leadership and consulting firm. In the most recent year and a half, she's focused on helping small business leaders and entrepreneurs leverage LinkedIn tools to grow their influence, business brand, and top-line growth, including clients who have doubled their top-line revenue. That's impressive. Just prior to launching her own firm in 2020, she worked as a certified career coach, helping 600 plus career professionals market their expertise on LinkedIn and in the job search market. Her clients included professionals from firms such as ConocoPhillips, AT&T, Wells Fargo, and many more. Previously, Iris spent a bulk of her career in the HR leadership field, including serving as the director of HR at Sabre, a division of American Airlines. Other HR roles included employee relations consultant at American Airlines, HR director at American Home Health, and HR director at Oral Roberts University, where she began her HR career in a training role. She holds a master's degree in adult education. Her focus is on staying curious. She considers herself a lifelong learner and has completed a wide variety of studies. Her firm specializes in delivering personalized learning experiences. She is a certified Everything DISC facilitator for leadership and sales teams. And I am super excited to have her share with us today. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Iris and let her start her presentation.
Well, thanks, Elizabeth. That introduction is, I always feel like, okay, and I earned all those gray hairs too, right?
I know that feeling.
Yes,
well.
I did, every one of them. Okay, so I'm going to, you might say, cover a fair bit of content, and I do have a couple of asks, if you will. As I'd mentioned in the beginning, I like to, you might say, tailor to the people in the room. So thank you for your input that you have in the chat. I've read that and will shape my content a bit to that. I have thrown in some extra things about some changes in 2020, some things that are happening in 2021. So it will be action-packed, but what matters most to me is covering and adjusting to the people here. So if you're expecting this to be one of those, I'm gonna just check out. This isn't one of those. feel free to raise your hand, and what that will do is notify me that you want to make a comment. So it's not one of those only Q&A at the end. Okay. So I do have another ask, which is if it's an option for you to have video on, it also helps me to, you might say, read a puzzled look on the face or that kind of thing. And then of course the chat and the reactions, feel free to use those liberally. Feel free to say speed up, slow down. Those are right next to your profile panel. So Elizabeth has taken my questions and created a poll. So I'm going to make you work right from the get-go. Okay. So this is one of those, you know, just quick first reaction. Let's take about 30 seconds and then we'll review the results. And Elizabeth, I don't think I mentioned, but when the poll, you can end the poll and then you share out the results to make it visible to everyone.
Okay, can you see the poll now?
We can.
Okay.
So number one, most trusted social platform for how many years? Just take a stab. These are just, I'll say, some fun facts that I'd like to just see what the vibe is that everybody's kind of thinking. And don't expect yourself to answer these correctly. Some of them are kind of obscure and some of them aren't, but these are just fun ones I picked. So let's give about, okay, let's give another 10 seconds. Okay, 7 out of 14. Do we get to 100% participation? Let's go, let's go. Again, just take your first reaction. Guesses are totally good.
Can you all see all the questions?
You have to, yeah, scroll down to see them all, but I see them. Okay, I see we have some people who are pretty already savvy on LinkedIn here. Okay. Okay. So let's wrap there. Can you end the poll for us and share out the questions? So LinkedIn is the most trusted social platform for 4 years in a row. Give yourselves a pat on the back. And some of you might have heard that before, because I know a couple of people have attended a different webinar I do. Okay, so number 2 is actually, okay, I tripped you guys up on this one. It estimates that an individual gets hired via LinkedIn average every 3 seconds. A little bit mind-boggling personally. 80% is correct on the number 3. It's 80% of social media business-to-business leads come from LinkedIn. It's the King Kong. Okay. This one would have been true in 2018, but in 2019, LinkedIn redid a lot of, I'll say, their back-end assumptions and basically made the highest priority on who you engage with as an individual versus top influencers. It had become kind of like an echo chamber for the Richard Branson and the Bill Gates and the Jeff Bezos of the world. And they said, that's really not serving our clients the best. So they made, you might say, the priorities according to who you're connected with and showing those things first. Okay, and this group did a great job on the last one as well. So it is 15 times more business information than job postings. So 15 times more. I know that basically Reid Hoffman, who started, founder of LinkedIn, and you can stop that share now, Elizabeth. I don't think I can, or just take it away. He did not anticipate that. He only ever saw it as a job search platform and a professional network, and really didn't anticipate kind of the B2B things that have happened. So anyway, okay, and let's see, I'm gonna admit someone to the room. So we're gonna take a quick look at landscape, or what I call landscape. This one you guys have already nailed. This one I think is really probably the key on why I think LinkedIn is interesting. I'll put it that way. It generates the highest visitor to lead conversion rate over the other platforms. Okay, that's basically 3 times. So you think about, you know, Elizabeth's expertise from overall marketing, you know, what your conversion rates are. I'm sure she's got a lot of deep knowledge in that area. And others do too, but that's massive to have like 3 times results of other platforms. So it's not a simple once and done kind of platform, but it does have, you might say, extra weight. My understanding is that websites have around a 1% conversion rate. So it's, you know, it's important in your mix. So here's that graph done that way, which really just shows kind of the impact. And here's the other thing that sets it apart. Users have double the buying power of the average web audience or the average social audience. Okay. And then I was reading this earlier this week about also people, the specifics around why people trust it, and people see it as a platform that's almost impenetrable from false information. It isn't technically, but because of privacy or something else. So all of those things drive this point here. 6 out of 10 users go to LinkedIn to look for information and are often making decisions. So I just like to kind of, you might say, provide a framework for why LinkedIn holds the unique space it does and why I think it's a really compelling platform. So it here is an area where it shows that, you know, how it kind of outdoes its peers as well. So all of that to say there is a huge opportunity there. And here's the thing that, and I'll refer to this perhaps a couple times, less than 1% of these active users. So the 260 million is not the total population on LinkedIn. It's the people who are actively using the platform. And that is less than 1% of those people post each week. So if you're not posting once a week, you might consider just doing that, and you're going to be in a 1%. So it does have a high organic reach. You don't necessarily need paid, and your audience has money, and people are in the mindset to grow, expand, network, and make decisions. So let's dive into a few factors around the visibility options, and that is part of the agenda. So it's important to understand, you might say, a little bit of the framework, or you can say the tech backend. Think of LinkedIn very similar to Google. It's based on Boolean operators. So it's, if you think I'm going to reverse search or I'm going to reverse engineer someone to find me, think about how you would search for something on Google. So it's the same premise. There are about 7 steps to making sure your profile is fully maximized. I'm going to focus on these top 2, your headline and your about. Those are the most SEO sensitive, search engine optimization sensitive. So let's dive into that. So let's look first at what some of the priorities are. Must have a photo. It has to be complete. As I said, there's about 7 steps for that. Keywords, as I was mentioning, and then connections. Connections can be this whole conversation in and of itself, which it could be a lengthy one, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time there because it can get really elaborate. But I will say that once you're over 500 connections, LinkedIn doesn't visibly show how many more connections you have than that. And people will say, is this high school popularity contest or what? Think of it this way. Think of it as if you do a search for project manager, you're going to get 8 million results. Okay. So LinkedIn, as massive as it's become, has to have some kind of priority for who's going to show up on the first, second, third page of those results. So the assumption is if you're active and networking and professionally active, you're probably going to have about 500 connections. I want to say about a decade ago that before they capped it visually at you've got 500 plus, there became this, I think, unhealthy, I have opinions and you'll probably hear a few of them. It became this unhealthy competition, who can get the most connections. And it really led to this thing called Lions, LinkedIn Open Networkers, which I'm not a big fan of, but then my marketing strategies kind of don't go there. Those tend to be superficial and I don't want to say unsophisticated, but not effective. So your headline, as I mentioned, is the most SEO sensitive, and it's one of those areas that people tend to just absolutely overlook, because the default for so long was, hey, it's my job title. Well, especially if you're a small business entrepreneur, any business leader where you might consider LinkedIn for marketing, please rethink that and make full use of it. So I actually teach a module just on this, and we spend quite a bit of time and dig in. But here's a real kind of core element, kind of you might say a starter way to think about it. Defining who you help. So this is part of your branding in a sense. I help people, X people, and my approach is different because. So let's just pause, and if you have a pen or want to type it, if your headline isn't completely communicating who you serve, why you're different, and what you do, let's take about a minute or so and just revisit that and take some time to think it over and brainstorm. I'll set it there for about 60 seconds. And then if anybody wants to share how they're reworking theirs or recently reworked theirs, I'd be happy to take that as a comment as well. Okay, looks like about 60 seconds have gone or thereabouts. Any comments or thoughts on that? Feel free to open mic it or put it in the chat if you're making changes or want to comment in any way.
So Iris, whenever you are on your LinkedIn profile, will it actually state like a headline, and that's where you will put this information without me having it pulled up right now? Okay.
Yes. So when you go to your profile, it'll show a pencil edit next to your headline.
Okay.
And you can think about this. You could also think about, I help people get X results. Because here's why job titles don't really cut it anymore, in my opinion. And that is, it worked, say, 10, 15 years ago when LinkedIn wasn't very crowded, but think of your headline and your banner image and just that first part of your profile as like a billboard, and people are going down the interstate at least 80. Right? That's how we all do social media. We scroll. Job title just isn't going to really help your clients see that you could help them, or potential clients. Okay. Thanks for that, Megan. Okay. So here's another thing you can do, a little, I'll say hack, if you want to call it that. You can use simple dividers, like I'm putting this in blue, and I usually say, punctuation matters. And what I mean by that is don't put a comma or a semicolon, because if someone is searching for your exact solution that you provide and it's in your headline, unless they put your comma or your semicolon. So that's why I recommend this little, you can call it a pipe symbol, railroad tie, whatever. It's right above the enter button on a laptop. So you could put CEO, MBA, maybe you're certified in something. Sometimes people use part of their last name space to add a descriptor. So those are just some things you might say that aren't necessarily real obvious, but you can have multiple headlines. And in 2020, they expanded the real estate and almost doubled for your headline. So it went from 120 to 220. So here are some questions that I would encourage you to think about asking in your headline. Not only who you are, but kind of who is that audience, like Elizabeth was referring to, and how you help them. What's your unique value? Sometimes, you know, the credibility piece, depending on your field, And then this one, if it works for you, why should they talk to me? Because as I said, these are the more information and clarity you have, it helps you get found and understood. So it is a full branding opportunity. And I keep trying to move the visuals here of the video screen, and it keeps going forward. Okay, so here is someone who is an example. There is no really right or wrong, and I don't want you to have, I'll say, a measure of freedom, because what I see is that lots of people are really intimidated by the platform itself, probably because, you know, it's quote the professional platform, but yours is it's not going to be the same as anyone else's. So here in her headline, she's covering a lot. So it says what she does for which people, et cetera, et cetera. She even has in here a link where you could book a call. And then she has a company page, because this piece here is not a gray box. If you have a company page, which we will get to very briefly, it'll be a gray box without it. So her banner image is there. Notice this orange ring, and we'll talk about it later. But that is a new change in 2021. So, you know, there are probably 50 examples that I could show you that, you know, would be built out appropriate to that individual. Just realize it should be very individual. That is your personal brand. Okay, I'm going to pick it up a little bit because there's a lot to go through. So the about section should be about solving pain, not simply this is a summary of everything I've ever done. And that has morphed as well. So it should be client facing, focus on the problem you solve. And that space there, you definitely can speak to the results you get. Okay. Right in the first person, again, that's probably changed in the last 8 to 10. It used to be a third person formal thing. It definitely is moved. Avoid buzzwords that make people just kind of glaze over. Showing your human side is nice. Like, you know, hey, when we connect, don't be surprised if I bring up bicycling and cooking Thai food. I mean, you know what I mean? Be human, okay? And then this one is really, in my opinion, super important and easily overlooked. Think about what shows above the fold. And what I mean by above the fold, and I'd be happy to go to a profile at the end and talk about any of these in a real life example. But there's the headline, the banner image, the photo, and then the first 2 to 3 lines of the about section will show before someone has to click, okay? You know how often you don't click? That's how often other people don't click, okay? So make that really meaningful information. Maybe it's a lead magnet. Maybe it's a free PDF download. Make whatever you think is most important to quote above the fold or before they have to click. I use above the fold because I came from print journalism like back in the day, and that just covers a lot in a short period of time. So these are some buzzwords that if you have them, like, take them out. I could say more, but I won't. Okay. Make it frictionless to reach out to you, both in the contact section. It's easy to forget about that section. And I recommend, like, if you're, you know, putting your email, a coffee chat, you know, phone, whatever contact information you want to share, put it in the about as well as in the contact section. Because here's what LinkedIn is. It's a brand opportunity. It is an opportunity to identify. And we won't go into that today because that gets into a more targeted kind of sales piece, and network to your ideal customer, client, and then you can converse, connect, and convert. So as I said, it's not a once and done. So finding business on LinkedIn, I put this on because this is kind of the snapshot of how I hear a lot of feedback from people. It is really confusing. So I want you to put in the chat of what's your favorite hurdle? What's your personal favorite hurdle of why you might be staying away from LinkedIn or any of these? Okay, and then while you're doing that, I'm going to be sharing some results that I gathered from, I did a survey back in January of about 100, 110, between 100 and 110 business leaders. And then I did about 12 interviews to kind of test some assumptions of what I thought was certain behavior on LinkedIn that was, that I wanted to check. Oh, share side of buzzwords. I will come back to that, Megan, if that's okay. Time for sure. Great, thank you, Christine. Here's the thing, and it kind of ties in with what Elizabeth said. I don't advocating spending a lot of time on LinkedIn or on other social media. And it's not that you can't and won't devote any time, but here's the thing. If you have a plan, and I have like a blog post, LinkedIn article about, you know, if you really want to make massive traction, you can do massive things in 30 minutes a day. Now, you may not want to do that, but you can do 15 minutes a day. I suggest people start with 5. And there is an article if you want to find an article time. And I'm only one person. Exactly. So you have to prioritize. I would say go in with a strategy and then focus on the things, what you're there to do, and then get off. Because every social media platform is a race to the brainstem. That's how they're designed, meaning they're designed to make you click and scroll and click and, you know, so, and then set a time and just say, okay, I'm going to devote 10 minutes from 8:45 to before my first meeting start at 9. And then that's it. And you're off.
Well,
and if you want to contact me for that. Yes, Elizabeth?
You just got a question. What should you do in those 5 to 10 minutes?
So it depends on your priority and your strategy. Okay. So how's this for a horrible answer when someone's giving a talk? It depends. But it really does. It depends on your priority. Depends on your business. So if you're in a phase where you want to connect with more people, then you can target people or, you know, connect with them. Sometimes what I do often is if I'm really pressed on time, I will comment on other people's posts. If I had to, like, without a strategy, you know, where it fits into your overall strategy. And I know that goes against what Elizabeth told us. But, you know, if you have a week, like you moved and your sister got hospitalized, whatever. And you're like, okay, I can't really think. I'm just gonna go devote some time. You have to start somewhere. That's a good point, Elizabeth. So I would say comment on other people's posts, because here's what happens. There's several reasons. If you have to pick one, choose a good time of the day, which is usually Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays are the best days from a broad perspective, and it'll make a difference depending on your target audience, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I would choose like a 9 o'clock, a morning time on one of those 3 days, and then say people who you're connected with and who've been brave enough to make a post, who are part of those 1% that post once a week. Comment on that. And when I say comment, I mean, I don't like, just do the extra 10 words and read their thing and then say, wow, I had never thought about that before. Or what about this part of that? So if you literally have 5 minutes and we're not talking what's part of your strategy, I would do that. When you post, depending on how many other people are connected to that person, lots of times, depending on a number of factors that I won't go into, your first level connections, their first level connections can see it. And depending on the situation, perhaps the second and the third. Okay, so LinkedIn is the most generous social platform, and that's one of the beauties of it. Okay, does that help? Okay. So, okay, thanks for putting that in the chat. And let me just kind of hit some highlight of the surveys. It was like, okay, here are all my challenges. And it really came down to, I'm highlighting a couple. Figuring out the best way to connect to my ideal clients was number 2. And number 1 was knowing when I'm making progress. Okay. we're going to go to kind of the shortcut to when you know you're making progress. And that is right here. LinkedIn actually gives you a score. And not a lot of people are aware of that. So I believe I have cut and pasted the SSI score, and feel free to check it while I'm talking. It's fine. So that is an indicator, and we'll talk a little bit about what goes into those indicators. But basically, they've done a lot of data related to this score, but basically they found that people who are there to market, who have a higher SSI score, have higher results. I'll just cut to the chase and say that. So there's 4 pillars, if you will, to your SSI score. Your brand, there's a number of things that go into that. Are you connected with people in your ideal target? Are you sharing things that are insightful? Or is it too, I'll say promotion-y? And then are you building relationships? Are you continuing to grow and connect? Okay, and then there's a question here, Brian. How valuable is Sales Navigator versus LinkedIn in general? Depends on your goal. If you're there to acquire new clients, it's massive. And they've just made significant changes like a week and a half ago to Sales Nav. It's expensive. I say it's absolutely worth it if you have a really specific plan. If you don't have a plan, you're literally lighting your money on fire. So I have an article in LinkedIn. I mean, it's one of those things that absolutely ticks me off when someone's like, well, I got Sales Navigator because I knew it would help me. Well, it's kind of like buying a turbo car and then never turning on the turbo. Okay. So yes, but okay. I know there's more to that, but in the interest of covering it. So anyway, here is a bit more on that SSI. So it basically, I made the chat too big. Okay. So it's a measure of kind of all those 4 components, and LinkedIn will actually give you a green light once you hit 80. From a general perspective, unless you're there to prospect significant amounts of time, a target score of 70 is pretty darn respectable. I'll say it that way. So, and that is something that if someone wants to go into with me more later, they can. Okay, we're getting close on time. So what has been really, you might say, the sweet spot for LinkedIn, I would say in the last 4 to 5 years, and exploded during the pandemic, and that is content marketing, because of what we saw with less than 1% of people share content. Here's a quote from a leading marketer. Here's that piece about this is the percent of people who are sharing content. And this is a repeat of an earlier statistic. So lots of times people say, oh my gosh, now what okay, I get it, I'm supposed to be there, but what the heck am I supposed to be talking about? So here are some ideas. There's a framework that gives you about 10 others, but here's, you can share your perspective on an industry trend. And I will say that resharing other people's posts, the algorithm used to reward that. It is like in the toilet right now. So that's not a good strategy anymore. Sorry, Elizabeth, I said toilet, but anyway. So sharing other, I'd say commenting on other people's articles, and then participating in groups. Now, groups is kind of a whole other thing, and they're making some changes there, but if leading with value. So here's some tips on kind of what gets juice, if you will, and where some things are, because it used to be in marketing terminology, you needed about 7 customer touches for the customer to really engage. It was like the rule of 7. With social media and a bunch of other things, that is about 12 to 21, depending on a number of factors, is what I've been reading lately. And there's not industry agreement on that, but you can mention other people, tap your network. Like, I am thinking about this as my book title, or blah, 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 blah. So you don't want to self-promote until you might say, put some money in the emotional bank of your colleagues on LinkedIn. Okay, and that's where content marketing often comes in, is like you're providing value. So some other tips around content would be don't have an external link. And here's some how you can tap your network for more advice. Kind of crowdsource, like you're struggling with something. And they are doing a new thing with group messages. Kudos to others. That is awesome. You know, being generous on the platform. And again, you can do this in 10 to 15 minutes a day. Here are some things they do penalize. External links, because you want to think, how does LinkedIn earn money? They earn money by what's called dwell time, meaning how long people's eyeballs are on the platform. So if it's an external link, you're taking people off the platform. LinkedIn's going to push that down. Or non-engaging content, and then self-promotional. So if you're on there promoting yourself, here's what happens. You might say, this is straight from LinkedIn. They don't publish a lot about what goes on behind the scenes, but this is a graphic from one of their articles. So there's a bot that says, is this content good to go? Is it spammy? And then within the first 2 hours, the bots check with how are the users engaging? How are this person's colleagues engaging with this post? And that's one of the reasons I say, if you're not sure what to do and have 5 minutes, comment on other people's posts. It encourages them and it helps them and it helps you. If people interact, then it's bumped up. If people are scrolling, hiding, or reporting as spam, it literally is manually removed from the feed. So they do a lot to protect, you might say, their space. So comments or questions in the chat, feel free to just throw them in there. I know I'm covering a lot. And this is just one of my favorite messages. Why I like it is it really is a great place to put yourself out in front of an audience. You can add value and other people see it because of that unique generosity factor, and you can communicate your message, but you want to be thoughtful about your brand and your clarity. Here is probably something that is easier to do than you might think. Okay, so you can have a LinkedIn company page. Elizabeth has one, or else she wouldn't have been able to run a LinkedIn event. Okay, it's not super complicated, and it does do some things in terms of showing you trends and so forth. So it has some pluses. It's very different. It interacts differently than other things, but you can, if you have employees, you can leverage that. So if you're a business owner and you haven't looked at LinkedIn company pages, I would suggest you just consider it. These are some basics. No more gray box. It does kind of build that authority, and you can host events. I see events as the next, you might say, major trend for LinkedIn. Now, here are some ways in which it differs from your personal page. So you never, you need both, and you start with your personal. Your personal is, the direct and the networking. The company serves others purpose. So how do you get business? Here, connect, converse, and convert. So depending on your business model, so it is the best for B2B, and depending on what you're doing, it can be useful for business to consumer as well, but it's a little different. So I'm just throwing in some things just to encourage you that it's doable. As I said, it requires a little bit more of a layered and thoughtful approach. Okay. Sorry, the video screens are hiding part of my slides, so I'm kind of bumping forward faster than I want. But here's some no-cost ways to draw some clients to you. Create an event, which Elizabeth has done, and you see, and there will be a lot more, is my prediction, because it's kind of blowing up behind the scenes right now. Networking, you can actually create a messaging group. That's new in 2021. You can contribute in groups. I mentioned that before. And if you haven't yet, you might consider including a form to do lead capture or lead generation capture in your about section. So those are some ways, no cost, and you can connect with potential clients. So here's a way to provide value and get to know people, because they're going to refer business once they know, like, and trust you, or they will, make that purchasing decision. And groups is a way to potentially do that. Here are some Netiquette, which are pretty basic. I say don't connect with those you don't know. Other people differ from that, but that I'm more of a strategic network, not a LinkedIn open networker. Rules of the road: authentic, engaging, and generous, kind of that leading with value piece. And you do have an opportunity to stand out among the spray and pray, as I would call it. And I don't probably need to explain that term because probably all of you have experienced it. LinkedIn has really cracked down on that. So we're going to see probably a lot of that going away. Kind of touched on this earlier, and this is why content marketing tends to work. In the past, there were a lot of marketing DM campaigns and connector campaigns. Right now, I see it as content marketing, and we're starting to move into LinkedIn events as a key opportunity to connect with an audience. So a path, here's what it comes down to for me. Your SSI and profile strength, those kind of go together. Finding your ideal client. If you're in Sales Nav, there's 200 filters that you can really drill down to find ideal clients, but then it's a matter of that know, like, and trust cycle. It really needs to be customized to your business, who you are as an individual, your customer path, and a number of things, but it's there. You can even do some of that with a non-paid account. And if you're primarily B2C, business to consumer, you might consider using LinkedIn primarily for referral partnerships and expanding your reach. I think I'm going to skip some of these changes just because I want to leave time for Q&A. Okay, I will flip through a few. This one does kind of matter, 50% rise in engagement, and that is sustained, and that is still staying around. We saw a lot of changes here in 2020. From branding, it expanded the real estate in both sections. We saw, an expansion of this. This had been something that was asked for quite a long time, articles, documents, and you can put external links there. So, sorry, that's a double. 2021, I'll just mention this and then we'll go right to Q&A. LinkedIn events is going to be integrated with Zoom from what I'm reading. Cover story video options, so that profile pic, you can now have a short video in your profile pic. It's kind of sexy, cool, and weird all at the same time. So it's not hard to do and all of that. LinkedIn newsletter, it's not LinkedIn's newsletter. They're providing the capability for you to have a newsletter that's under the umbrella of LinkedIn. Group messaging, I see this as their attempt to undo the damage that people, I'll say, cold call messaging campaigns had. Here are some other smaller changes. And I've kind of shared. I think LinkedIn events is of the future. Okay, so I'm offering to anyone who attended an SSI or profile review, and I think Elizabeth has the link for that, and let's go to Q&A and big takeaways, other than there's a lot to it.
Iris, while they're getting their questions, do you mind? I'm going to share my screen. Can we swap?
Not a problem. Yeah, go ahead and just take it. Let me stop the share. Bryant, posting on your page versus your business page, I would say the first priority is your page. It's LinkedIn as an event, as a platform is designed around that. Company page is kind of a nice add-on in today's crowded marketplace. Does that cover enough of what you wanted to?
Can you share something that you've posted on your page? Can you then?
Yes. Let me look. Let me think. It goes. I'm 95% certain that's correct. Your page shared to your page shared to your company page, and then your company. I think it will go both ways. It's been a little while since I've done that. I believe it goes both ways. And then Megan, you're welcome. I know you have to jump. Okay. Q&A and comments. What was your big takeaway? Oh, thank you, Anna. Yes, a workaround around the external links and posts. People are putting them in the comment. And that is the standard workaround. Thank you for bringing that up. Excellent.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a best practice. So you're not a new hand at LinkedIn if you're asking about that, Anna.
Not quite.
Okay.
But would like to know more.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, and that is why it's one of my favorite topics, because it's ever changing. It's a moving target.
Well, Iris.
Linda, yes, it would be considered. Yes, I'll say the short answer to your question is yes. So put it in the comments, or keep it in your about section and your contact information section.
Yeah, it drives me crazy when you go to somebody's contact information looking for a phone number or an email, and it just sends you back to LinkedIn Messenger. Me too. Yeah, so if you have clients and you want them to find you, they give up if it requires too much effort. I've done it. I'm like, okay, that person doesn't want to be contacted that badly. What's a takeaway? This group is quiet, probably because I chatted a lot. What's your favorite takeaway, if any?
The exercise or the just committing time to it has been helpful and giving me guidance on how to engage, because all I do right now is just connect with people. Like I shared a post that like this week for the first time, but other than that, I haven't done anything on LinkedIn.
Okay, well, and that's very common. I had a class called 6 Weeks from Questions to Confidence that I beta tested in March, and I was stunned at the number of people who there were several professional colleagues of mine that I already knew that joined that class. And I mean, some of them were like in my status, in my head, like just guru status. And I'm like, you're scared to post? And she was like, yeah. And I'm like, you're my rock star hero. How can you be scared to post? So just progress, not perfection, is what I would encourage. That's kind of my mantra in my trainings: progress, not perfection. And if you have a typo in an article or something, you can edit it. Okay. It's not like, yeah, I mean, I understand it's your professional reputation and it does matter, but progress, not perfection is my mantra.
Well,
I have a
Iris,
quick
you have
question.
provided some amazing information today. Camille, did you have a question?
I did. I noticed a new thing on LinkedIn, and maybe you already covered this, but when I make a comment on something, it says like, become the conversation and turn this into a post or whatever. Is that any good? Like, should I be clicking it? Should I try it? I don't know. It kind of freaked me out when it was on there.
Yeah, it is new, as in new in the last, I want to say 5 weeks or so.
Yeah.
And it ties into group messaging. So depending on what you want to do, I would say, yeah, go for it.
Cool.
Yeah, because messaging had been abused so often, and people were saying, you know, I want to form a mini group because we're all like preparing for this thing and we're virtual. So now group messaging is here, and that, do you want to do that thing with your post as part of that?
Okay, I'll play with it.
Yeah.
You'll probably get a message.
Awesome. Yeah. And if someone wants to just practice with me, feel free. Another thing you can do is like, I'm gonna write an article or I'm gonna share a post, and you want to share it with someone and get feedback before you get it out there, you can do that. And if you want to use me as your guinea pig, I'm happy to do that. And
Well,
that's to all of them.
Well, I want to be respectful of everyone's time today. You have shared so much great and valuable information. I'm still processing it all, so I'm probably going to go back and watch the recording myself, just so I can come back and get it all. But I love the fact that you have offered 15-minute either a profile or an SSI review. I know I'm going to take advantage of it, because as you were going through what you need to have in your headline and your about, and I thought my LinkedIn was pretty good, but I was like, I bet it needs someone to just tweak it a little bit. So I appreciate that very much. Before we head out today, I want to be respectful of your time. I do want to let you know about the next two What Works seminars or webinars that are coming up. So on October 21st, we've got James Bullis with Benton Web Solutions. He's going to be talking about how to easily get your business found online. So if you've ever had questions about your website and what it takes to really be found online, he's going to be covering that information. Camille Diaz is going to be talking about podcasts for fun and profit. She is the host of Money Heart, and she's had a podcast for many years now. And so she's going to be sharing insights as a business owner, how she has used podcasts in her business as part of her overall marketing strategy, plus some tips on how to get started if that's something you've considered in the past. I'm always open for webinar topics. So if you guys have something, a question you've always wanted to know more about, let me know, shoot me an email, because I'm always looking for new topics and new ideas to talk about. And really, I just want to say thank you. So as soon as the recording is finished, I'm going to be sending out an email to you all with the information. It'll include a link to Iris, so you can schedule your 15-minute profile or SSI review. She's also included an ebook, which is very interesting as well, that I think you'll get a lot of value from. As always, if you guys have any questions about your marketing strategy, or just want to talk about marketing, or even how you use LinkedIn as part of your overall strategy, I would love to hear from you. So thank you so much for your time today. I hope that you guys have a great week.
Okay, thanks. Bye, everybody.